Hi, my name is Gabriela and today I'll be showing you my journey to follow footsteps of Zainichi Students Volunteer. From August to November, I visited 10 locations to better understand the story of the volunteer. Starting in Tokyo in late August, I went to the site of the Suruga-dai Hotel, which was where the first group of volunteers volunteered to join the war. Even though the Suruga-dai Hotel was no longer existed, I could see why this location was chosen. It was the next to Meiji University, which could be meaningful for volunteers, as a majority of Group 1 came from Meiji University. The next location I visited was a Subong Park located in Incheon, South Korea. I wanted to see how the volunteers are remembered in Korea. Interestingly, during my first visit to Subong Park, I found the statue of a volunteer was being renovated. Because of that, I was able to see the statue before and after of its renewal. Then I encountered the director of Zainichi Students Volunteers Association, Mr. Kim, who invited me to his office to meet with the last volunteer, Mr. Park. As the result of the conversation, they officially appoint me as their representative. Then I was able to attend the memorial event for the volunteers on September 26. It was a great honor to be there, as I had a chance to talk with the volunteer family members and to see how the statue has changed after its renewal. The next day, I took an opportunity to visit national cemeteries of overseas Koreans known as Mangyang Park. It is where those overseas Koreans include Zainichis, Manchurian Koreans, and others to be laid to rest. As I left the office, I was able to take the bus with the families and relatives of the volunteers. When I arrived, I was able to see event before the committal service, and the older family members and the relative were able to visit their own areas, which were divided by categories. To show my respect, I stayed behind until the service ended, then got on the bus. That's when I saw one of the family members whose father was missing being interviewed by Japanese medias. This shows that the Zainichi volunteers issue is circling back into the public awareness. Immediately before visiting Sorimsa Temple in Busan, I visited the UN Museum to see how Korean War was remembered. I hope to see some references to Zainichi volunteers, but as I expected, I couldn't find anything. After my trip to museum, I visited the last locations where the volunteers stayed, which was the Buddhist temple located in Donggu, Busan. The temple was smaller than I expected, but there was a sign to indicate the volunteers stayed there from 1951 to 1952. After a short visit to temple, I went to Hanoi to present volunteer history and some remark on the subject. As I was on the Korean panel, I was able to talk to scholars whose academic interest lay in the minority in the Korean War. But even to them, the Zainichi volunteers were mysterious, as the international community has never heard them before. After Hanoi, I went to Memorial Hall for Incheon landing operations. The outdoor exhibition shows different types of weapons and tanks used in the war, while the indoor exhibitions contain additional education material. There was a small picture of a Subong Park to show involvement of the volunteers, but there wasn't enough explanations to explain the volunteers and their background. The final place I visited was actual landing grounds, as a Group 1 and 2 landed in Incheon on September 19 and September 24, 1950. I wanted to see what location looked like today. It has a landmark to show the locations for the Operation Chromite, or known as the Incheon landing, but similar to the previous location, there weren't any explanations or to introduce Zainichi volunteers. It was a long journey from New Zealand to Japan and then from Japan to Korea. However, following the footsteps of volunteers gives weight to the work that I do as a scholar representing their past and present. It was also meaningful as the scholar who study about them and visited all the locations they went through in their lifetime. So it was a very meaningful journey and I learned a lot. And now I will end this video with a few words from Mr. Park, the last surviving volunteers from the Korean War.
감회적은 예술이나 음악이나 문학이나 가게도 모두 소질을 가지고 있는 민족입니다. 그래서 열심히 연구해서 우리나라가 2030년도경에는 아주 부유하고 좋은 나라가 돼서 잘 살 수 있는 나라가 되어주기를 간절히 바랍니다.